You remember last year we had Club 31's 100th birthday, and at that time, every month, we had a guest speaker talking about various industries that made Colorado great. The first month, which was February, our own John Stewart talked about the mining industry. As the prospectors and miners began to find gold up around Black Hawk in Central City, the question is, what did they do with the gold? How was commerce conducted in Denver City, Kansas Territory? If your grandmother or grandfather gave you a $10 or $20 gold piece and said, hold on to this, this will be worth something, is it only worth spot gold, which now is around $1,700 an ounce? Or does it have rare coin value, numismatic value? And who is Clark and Gruber? Well, our guest speaker will be answering these questions. Bob Bair is a retired school principal and former high school history teacher. He's an avid coin collector and a coin dealer since 1987. In the 1950s in Wisconsin, Bob began to look through his newspaper route collection money for rare coins, and this became a lifetime passion. Folks, welcome our guest speaker, Bob Bair.
Thank you, Ed, for the kind introduction. Thank you, Rotarians, for having me here. Why am I here? What an existential question, right? 3 reasons, and Ed got all of them in his introduction. One, I want to introduce to you 3 unsung heroes in Denver and Colorado's early history that really more ought to be known about. I'm going to do my best. 2, to phase into modern numismatics just a little bit, because I think there's a parallel between what Clark and Gruber and Company established in Denver and what modern third-day authentication and grading services do involving rare coins. And thirdly, I'd like us to take a look at kind of a brief summary of the Denver Mint, which would not be here without Clark, Gruber, and Company. This is what Denver looked like in 1859 or so. The first gold came out of the Rockies in 1857. And just as with California, a rush developed immediately. Denver initially was nothing but a bunch of tents and shanties along Cherry Creek. About 1,000 people by May of 1859 were doing their best to make their fortunes from the gold that they found there. In our next slide, this is what Denver looked like in 1860. The population sextupled in 1 year, from 1,000 or so to 6,000 plus, and now it's starting to look more like a city. Well, the real question is, when that number of people flood into an area, how do you conduct business? How does an economy work there? Initially, because there were no banks, because the miners hadn't brought much money with them, they were hoping to make money there by finding gold in particular. A barter system developed. I brought along a couple of props because a barter system, that can't work for long term. Where, look, I'll trade you some gold, a pinch of gold dust for supplies I'm going to get at your store. Here's an example of that. Of course, a guy who had great big hands, ham hands, and huge fingers. Man, when you took a pinch out of your gold pouch, you look at what the heck happened. And there was a way that some clever storekeepers figured out to even add to their advantage. Let me just show you. Here's a common pinto bean, tiny little pinto bean. If I'm storekeeper Sam and I want to get a little edge up on Miner Mike, I just put the pinto bean in my pocket. When Miner Mike comes in the store and he's browsing around getting the supplies he needs, I'm pinching the heck out of that pinto bean between my thumb and index finger. I'm still keeping it in my pocket. He comes along at the end, he's going to check out, he puts his stuff on the counter. That'll be 2 pinches of your gold pouch. Okay, says Miner Mike, and he opens up his pouch. now I drop the pinto bean into my pocket, take out my thumb and index finger, which have concave depressions in them, and take a pinch of gold dust. Mike looks at, what the heck happened? That pouch was full when I came here. Like, I took one pinch and it's almost all gone. Miner Mike figured out how to deal with that. Miner Mike figured out that if you take anything made out of brass and a file and open your pouch and work a little bit on the piece of brass over your pouch, you dilute the gold dust in it. Let that storekeeper say, I'm taking a big pinch. That's okay with me because he ain't going to get the pure stuff. No, he's not. And ladies and gentlemen, come on. How can an economy work like that? It can't. Enter three unsung heroes who revolutionized the economy, provided a medium of exchange, and set the basis for the Denver Mint. The Clark brothers, Austin and Milton, were dry goods entrepreneurs in Leavenworth, Kansas, where Emanuel Gruber ran a bank. The three were on good terms with one another, knew about the gold rush in the Denver area, and said, hey, let's go there. We'll start a bank. Gruber has the background for that. Milton, at the bottom, was an attorney as well, so he had a marketable skill. Plus, the Clark brothers could bring in supplies for miners. So in 1859, they showed up in the Denver area. They bought some land the first of the year in 1860 to build a building on it, which was going to be a bank. And ultimately, it ended up being a place where they minted their own coins. We're going to see that just in a second. Here's where they announced in the Rocky Mountain News what they were going to do. You can see right at the top, Clark, Gruber and Company, bankers. That's a good word. You may not be able to see the fine print at the bottom, but here's a revolutionary announcement. They say, we have in connection with banking a mint, and are prepared to exchange our coin for gold dust. The native gold is coined as it is found alloyed with silver. The weight, this is revolutionary, the weight will be greater than the value as the same United States coin. In other words, if you had a Clark & Gruber $10 gold piece, it would have 1% silver and 28 extra grains of gold in it to give it a value of about $10.10. That was to establish credibility. The idea was to put in more value, but not so much more that people are going to start melting your coins to separate the gold and the silver. There wasn't enough for anyone to do that. But here's a big, bold announcement in the paper saying, this is what we're going to do. You can trust our coinage. It's going to be the real deal, and then some. A pretty revolutionary situation all the way. Here's their first building. The Clark & Gruber Company building. You can see stairs over to the right coming up out of a basement. The basement ended up being their coining area. Milton Clark, the attorney, had found out that there was no federal regulation against making a private territorial coinage as long as it had at least face value. $5 gold coin had to have at least $5 in it. That all changed in 1864 because you can't have 500 different minters, and nobody knows for sure if those coins are real or not, but it was essential in the mining frontier around Denver. And these guys were honest. They had a reputation that preceded them from Leavenworth. So they coined in the basement. The bank was on the second floor. I'm not sure if those three gentlemen are Clark and the Clark brothers and Gruber or not. Upstairs on the third floor was their living quarters. That was the start. The Clark brothers went on to be 3/8 shareholders in the First National Bank of Denver, but the banking business in Denver started right there in that building. Here's another quote. Mike, if you get that, we'll get it later. Squarely in the background is the Clark & Gruber building. The Rocky Mountain News, you'll notice on the right, the Rocky Mountain News editor, a man named Bair, was invited to come see this gold coin operation. Here's what he wrote in the July 25th, 1860 Rocky Mountain News. In compliance with which invitation from Clark, Gruber and Company, we, his editorial